Well, is it cool if we jump right into my first question?
Totally. Yeah.
Go from there. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. This is the well, first off, Ellen, for everybody listening, thank you so much for joining the Mindful Impact podcast today. I have a feeling we're going to learn a lot. And hopefully, for everybody listening, just implementing one or two things that I know we will learn today is worth it. So, first and foremost, Ellen, in your life today, let's get a little feel of where you're at when you
Okay.
wake up in the morning. What is it that just lights you on fire for the day, that like sings to your heart, makes it sing out loud?
Few things come to mind. One is just my family. They're this like beam of light I just try to hover around and stay close to. And my kids and my husband, that's who I mean. And my yoga practice, I usually start my day with yoga. And so that's just a lifesaver in so many ways, on so many levels for me. So that's really something I love and feel grateful that I have that. And I think also nature, like I love to get outside. So when I can connect with nature somehow, even like right now, it's just looking at the sky through the window right next to me. That's really calming. Like I think these days I'm really drawn towards what calms and grounds me,
Mm.
because there's just such the layers of challenge out in the world just are exponentially growing, it seems like at times. So I feel really drawn to the things that really ground, calm me, remind me what's most important to me.
Thanks for sharing that. And you
Yeah,
mentioned yoga.
sure.
When did you,
Hmm.
out of curiosity, like when was it that you first picked up yoga practice? How long ago was that?
Oh, gosh, I was 22. So
Oh.
I'm 47. So that's 25 years ago.
It always fascinates me when somebody picks up yoga or meditation or some sort of spiritual practice like 10, 15, 20 years ago, when it
Yeah,
wasn't very common, right?
it
In the Western
wasn't.
society. I guess I want to ask you then, before we get into anything, like was it an influence in your family? How did that happen?
God, I think it wasn't actually, although everyone in my family now practices yoga, which is so cool. I'm one of 5 kids and my parents are almost 80 and everybody does yoga now. But that's great. But I think I always loved movement and sports or hiking and backpacking. Like I just loved moving my body and being outside. And I was really into running at the time. And I was like, I should probably stretch more. And there was like a yoga class at my YMCA. And I was like, oh, I think they stretch in yoga. I think that's good. So that's where I started. And it was like obviously so much more than stretching. And from the first class, I was just totally enthralled with like being so in over my head and being so curious. And I've really been practicing ever since. I've had some breaks with, having babies and things like that, but
Yeah. That helps. Yeah. Do you have a meditation practice too?
it's not a formal sitting practice that's consistent right now. I've had phases of that too since my early 20s, and there are times in life where that has been essential.
Mm-hmm.
And right now it's more the sitting I do is really brief, and it's usually after I practice yoga, and then I'm just trying to take mindful walks. Like I'm trying to
Mm.
do just like to hit a few things at once. Like I kind
Yeah.
of need to
Right.
move and get outside and practice more mindfulness. It's just a good reset for me, if nothing else. And so
Yeah.
that's more of how I'm including it.
It's funny. Thanks for sharing. It's funny how you
Yeah.
said that, because you hear like these people who are single, females
Oh,
or males, and they're like,
yeah.
my 16-hour routine for the
Yes,
day.
totally.
And
I'm
I'm like,
like,
I have a 2 and a 5-year-old. Like,
yeah, there's, I got like maybe 3 minutes. Yeah, it really, all of that really changed when I had kids too. It was like, I used to have 2 or so hours a day to practice, yoga and meditation and all kinds of things. And that's, now that my kids are 9 and 10, or no, how old, 10 and 11. I guess my son, oldest, is almost 12. So there's a little more space, but not much.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have I know you're married, and is it your husband who's the host of your podcast, or you guys are co-hosts? How's that work?
Yeah, so Jayson Gaddis is the host of
Okay.
the Relationship School podcast, and I come on there sometimes. It's really he is all the sweat and heavy lifting of the Relationship School, absolutely, and I get to come in and enjoy what he's built and participate and support him in that.
So for you guys, I mean, him running a podcast is obviously always growing and learning and figuring, and you're doing the same thing. Do you guys challenge each other a lot, when not specifically challenge, but like call, hey, you're doing this right now, Ellen, or like, how are your arguments, basically, is my question.
What does it look like when you fight?
Yeah.
Well, it can look like a lot of things. Like, I think we do challenge each other. Like, we really want that from each other, like challenge each other to be our best, or to, like, hey, remember when you said you weren't going to do this anymore, or you were going to do this for yourself or for us, or, like, we have a real green light to call each other on things when, because we've asked that of each other. So that is fair. And then how do our fights look like? We have really shared values, and we're really different people. So that looks like we have a lot to talk about, I guess. Even though we really want to raise our family the same way, we are both really fascinated with people and helping people with relationships and psychology and health. Like, we're into all that, but we come at it from really different life experiences and really different nervous systems. And so I think that we love talking. Like, we talk a lot, and we also, when we fight, let's see, I think we fight really fair. I think we've learned how to be really efficient, and not, there's no low blows. There's no, walking out of the room, or, if we don't finish something, it's like, okay, when can we come back to this? Like, okay, later tonight or tomorrow morning. Like, sometimes it takes a few days to chip away through something, but I think we fight well enough that we can fight in front of our kids and not feel ashamed, and feel good about it. And that's something we've really worked on. We've learned how to do it. It was like, as soon as we had kids, we realized, like, oh, we got to get way more efficient and really work through things quickly. And
how did that conversation come up?
Which conversation?
Like, the conversation of, like, okay, let's get on the same page with our, I've started with, like, arguments, because that's just, like, when it comes to relationships, doesn't matter how great it is, there's always something, right?
Completely.
So I wanted to just get that in there. So, like, how do you bring that up to your partner? Like, hey, I think we're arguing too much. Can we talk about how we can make them better? I've never asked this question before, so I'm not even sure.
I think just like that. I love how you did that. Yeah. I wouldn't change that at all. I think a great time to bring that up is when you're feeling connected. Like, I always encourage partners to try to talk about the harder things when they're doing well, which is, people don't want to, but I'm like, it's the best time when you're feeling connected and you feel like, okay, we're in connection right now, and that's a great time to talk about, like, let's do this better. I want to do this better with you and for us. And I think that's a great way to bring it up, because arguing is draining if it's not productive. I think arguments that move you forward or get you to a place of clarity and better understanding, that feel like, wow, I'm growing and developing by working through this shit with this person. Those are really productive arguments. So I'm all for those.
Ellen, what you just said, like, made me realize, or like, think about, a lot of times if we're having an argument, it might seem like you're trying to win, or
Yeah.
attack the other person, but
Yeah.
you're like, and you just shifted it of like, think about it as, and I can't remember exactly how you said it, but like an opportunity to grow and learn from each other, and instead of an opportunity to be right and an opportunity to jump into the other person's throat.
Yeah. That's
Real
going to go really
interesting.
bad. That's going to go really bad. I mean, being right is one of the downfalls of that's where arguing is. It's like you're really just shooting yourself in the foot, because if I come out on top, that's bad. That's actually bad for me in my in an intimate partnership, because now my partner feels bad or worse, or like I just one up them. I mean, I can't imagine that's something that I think would really take a toll on a partnership. Like, hopefully the goal is to, like, I want to understand you better. I want you to understand me better. And even though we might feel really differently about something, we need to come up with something that works or feels good to both of us. That's that would be more productive, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that I appreciate that. I didn't know what direction was going to go in the beginning, but that we'll start with that. And we'll make it a little more lighthearted here as we move forward.
Okay. Okay. No worries. Yeah. I can go light or deep, or I can move in and out of that pretty quick. So
Well, I guess like this is my viewpoint on life. Well,
yeah.
not really in life, but I know that I have one life in this world, right? We have
Mhm.
X amount of years. Heck, I don't even know how many are truly left.
Right.
And if I'm going to be with somebody in a relationship, I see them the most, I talk to them the most, right? I'm especially if you work from home, especially now with COVID, right?
Mhm.
And your kids see you and they reflect on how your relationship with your spouse is. I want to
Mhm.
have the best relationship possible. How how can we be like, how can couples just be as loving and happy? Is there like two or three things that we should really be focusing on, like at the
Mhm.
top of the chain, and
Mm.
then work your way down, or is it all over the place? I know it's a broad.
Well, I love that question. I love the inspiration behind that. Just the recognition that we have life is short. There's an urgency to our happiness and ease and being able to enjoy ourselves while we're here, and make it a better place for others, like your partner. And so I think where my curiosity leads me as you say that is like, what would be the best and happiest relationship for you? Like, and I would mean that to you and your wife, like, what is your version as a couple? What is you being your best? Because I do think there's something that is I mean, each couple has their own version of what they want their relationship to look like and be like and
Mm.
feel like. And I do think there's some underlying principles that would ensure that, but I love having couples think about that. Like, where do we want to go? What do we want for ourselves and each other? What's my role in your life? What's yours and mine? Like, what are we doing here? I think that is really important for a couple to know.
When you bring that up, and as a psychotherapist, is that did I say it? Okay.
Yeah.
Um, when you bring that up to couples, are they like, their minds just go, "Oh, we've actually never had that conversation before"? Is that usually the
Most
common response?
most of the time, they've
So,
never thought about it.
do
But
you put them on the spot right there and say, "Let's do it. Let's like
yeah.
figure it out"?
Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of know, like, this may not all happen in one session, but it could. Like, for some couples it could. And I don't want people to, because these are big questions. It's sort of like, what do I want my life to be about? In a way, there's something really simple. There's an essence of that that's going to be simple. And then there's like there's a lot to consider when you're drawing that up for yourself, let alone jointly with someone else. And so it is a big question, but I don't want people to shy away from it just because it's like, whoa, that's a big question. You know, people would think about that before if we're starting a business with someone, you'd probably have that all written out. What is this for? Why are we doing it? Where are we going? What are our goals? And a marriage or a long-term partnership is even maybe even more important to ask those things, but we rarely do. We're just sort of like, we're in love and let's just do this, which is really sweet. But over time, you want to have bigger a bigger reason for being together and a shared vision, because it's going to help you when life gets hard. Like, not even your relationship might not get that hard, but life is going to be challenging. There's no doubt.
Right.
So I think that it helps people to know their why,
Yeah.
and and then you can get more into, okay, if this is where we want to go and what our marriage is for, then your question, which was like about how do we have the best relationship we could, then you sort of know what you're moving towards. Like, hey, how do we do that? What's the way to get there? How do we do that really well? Does that
And yeah,
make
and
sense?
it makes my mind say, okay, when this outside circumstance or situation comes up, is us worrying about this or us getting involved in this the
Right.
best for where we're trying to get to?
Yeah, for who we are, for what our values are,
Right.
for our vision. Yeah, like how do we handle family? How do we handle um a pandemic? How do we handle a job loss? Like all that stuff starts to become clear when it's kind of like knowing who you are and knowing where you're going. It helps a lot.
Right. I see as I'm getting older, I'm 36, but more like established in a relationship and
Hmm.
business and everything, that I see us like what some of the topics are changing a little bit into like who do we want to support the most, like what causes do,
Mm,
and then we get on the same page there. And I mean,
yeah.
in our 20s and early 30s when we were together, that was never even thought of a thing. So
Right.
it makes sense if you have that strong foundation built already, then you can have these extra conversations about other things as you progress in your relationship and in your life.
Yeah, and it can all be ongoingly refined. It's not like, oh, we've already decided that, we close that book. It's like, you can always go back and be like, is this still true? Or, because you're right, big things do happen. Like, how are we going to raise our kids? What are our values there? I mean, that's a huge question. Or education, or health. How do we handle our health along the way? And there's so much about being partners, and then of course being a family, that there's a lot to there's a lot to unpack and relate to and
It's
figure out.
sometimes it's like how much do you want to, because I had this conversation with a friend recently, and you can give me your thoughts on this.
Hmm.
I literally said to him, I go, sometimes I'm I have to I look at Catherine, my wife, and I'm like, you got to be pretty exhausted being married to me, because I'm always like I'm always trying to do like something better or be better or
Mm,
do, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like always, but at the same time I'm a meditation teacher, so I've learned to stay, centered and in the moment, right?
Yeah.
Without, but I still want to like really grow. And so I'm reading this book and doing this and try, and so, is there a point where it's like just chill, like it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can you are there moments we should take that we should just relax a little bit, or should you not go so fast? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what you're learning about that, because I think that's a really good question, especially for someone like yourself, like you're describing, who's really driven and has a lot of aspiration and wants to learn and grow and seek. Like, there's a lot of really cool things about that. But I think you're also speaking to, and if I don't ever slow down or pause and reflect, like there's a cost. Or I'm curious what you're finding there.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it. Well, yeah, I just, because I wasn't always this way. Like I feel like I've missed out on a lot of years of learning, so I'm like trying
Mm,
to catch up.
yeah,
If that makes sense. Within the last couple of
totally.
years, I just something cracked open from an event I was at,
Hmm.
and I don't know what happened to me, but all of a sudden I'm like, I need to learn everything,
Yeah.
self development, growth, spirituality, relationships, parenting.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm like, sorry, honey, but like this is me right now, and I can't slow down. Even though I probably
Yeah.
said something about me, I don't know, but um, it's a good question,
Well,
Ellen. It's a
and
good
and
question.
is she exhausted? Like, was she like, yeah, this is too much? Or
Yeah, and that's, she's mentioned, and that's where, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll ease, because I'll, and I have. So it's been this is good. So when two people are on different
Yeah.
paces of their journey, I'm sure you've gotten
Yes.
this question before, how do they, and I think it took us, a little bit, but we
Yeah.
finally figured it out.
Yeah.
I wish there was a pattern or a system we could have followed to know that, but I guess learning it on your own also is important.
Yeah. Yeah, because that happens where you're maybe in different, like I like you saying, like different paces. I'm guessing your partner, it's not like she's opposed to growth and
No,
development, but
she's
she's,
totally like she's the one that got me into it. Like
yeah,
she's the one that
probably.
she's a yoga. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, she
And
was
now
like,
she's like, dude, like it's like, it's, not a race. Um,
see,
um, yeah.
that's
And
funny.
so you guys, I could see how, again, to me, that's like similar values, different different ways in the world. And this is where like couples they can start to feel like, oh, our differences are bad, or our differences are where we fight. And it can be hard to figure out how to really see the inherent strengths in being different. Because if imagine if you guys were both as gung-ho as you are right now, like your kids would be getting a lot less, or you might not have as good of food on the table, or she was like, I need just as much time as you do to go read and do it. Like it's actually really good that people are different, because you can actually attend to more needs and things in the whole system. And so I think when people see that, like, she might be like, yeah, you're learning a ton of shit and you can just tell me what's working and what's not. I don't have to read 20 books. I'll read the top three, or um, she can be a good balancer for you when you're sort of in your head too long. And she's like, just come sit, and we're playing trains over here. It's really cool. We got a train set up, and it's like, just to help with balance. I mean, you guys can balance each other, I think, which is cool. You have things to offer. And when people can, that's what I think maybe took a while to sort out, which is like, can we be different here and still really appreciate each other and see the value in how we're each engaging with life right now? Because I think there are amazing strengths in being different.
Yeah, that like what you said right there was exactly. I couldn't piece it together until you just said that. That's exactly what worked. Is
Mm-hmm.
is figuring out like, yeah, she's like an amazing balance to my craziness, right?
Yeah.
Teaches me to center, and then for her, she's like, oh, I actually enjoy that part because it challenges me to do certain things that I normally wouldn't,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So we're finding what we like about that specific side of us,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, I guess if you focus more on that as a couple than the bad things. And when I started this podcast, I was like, I want to talk to you more about like the positive stuff side of things. I
Yeah.
think so many relationship conversations, especially when they have somebody on, they're always talking about the bad stuff that happens and how we can overcome that.
Yeah.
Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, versus like nurture and really
Yeah.
maximize the things that are already there.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, but which would lead me into the next like question is,
Hmm.
how can we be there more for, I mean, you specifically deal with a lot. I know you deal with couples, but you're
Hmm.
very um skilled, I don't know the right word to say, at dealing with women because you've met with so many and helped so many. And I know
Hmm.
it's a specialty of yours. So from a talking to me as a male, like how can
Hmm.
I, for my male listeners, I guess first and
Yeah.
foremost, how can I do better
Mm.
on a daily basis
Hmm.
without seeming extra? If that makes sense, like fake.
Uh-huh. I love that question, and I would encourage all you and all your male listeners to ask your partner. I bet she would love, whoever that she is would love to be asked that. And it might surprise you at how simple her needs are there. Because she probably isn't going to come up with like, well, actually, you could help with all these things. It's not going to look like that. It'd just be, I bet it would be, if you ask that really genuinely the way you just did, and kind of vulnerably, like I felt that, that that's a real question for you, you really want to know. I feel like that's a huge opening. And I I think women love that. I think they love being asked and feeling like their partner is curious about their experience, and like, what do you want? Um, and I think that's a great conversation. And then what would be awesome is if, that also opens up for her to ask the same thing. Because I think two people who are really interested in, like, I want to be the best partner I can be for you. What else would that look like? Or what do I do that you really love? Or finding that out is really, really valuable. And I think two people who are invested in that are two people really invested in their partner's experience, which ultimately makes for you having a good experience. Like if you're invested in your wife's experience in the relationship and her experience of you, you're going to be having a better experience with her, if that makes sense. Because she's, this isn't about changing and becoming a different person. It's like bringing more of who we are probably to the relationship, more presence. I think it's probably the more, I don't know. I would guess that women would probably just want, a lot of women would want more of the being from their partner.
Being.
And, and some women really are like, man, I just need you to participate more. Because there are some women who really just want more participation in the relationship or the family. But a lot of women would love more just like presence, like just time with you, time where you're doing this, asking me, how am I? What do I want? How am I experiencing our marriage, or all of that?
Oh God. Now you just made me think like the worst thing that could ever happen to me is like my wife tonight saying, you know, you seem to be paying attention and being more curious to your guests on the podcast than you are me. I would just melt.
That could, yes. That could happen.
Oh man. Oh boy. Do you see
Yeah.
do you I could like I can imagine I can hear people listening to this, guys saying like, oh, I don't know if I can feel comfortable asking that. I feel weird. Do you see
Hmm.
that in couples, like the guys having trouble being vulnerable like that?
I mean, sure. I think men and women both, even, what's interesting is that, and it makes sense, but even in long-term relationships, people will avoid intimacy, will avoid that vulnerability of really revealing how much they depend and rely on how their partner experiences them or sees them. And that all is real. We really do depend and rely on our partners a lot emotionally. And it's normal to, it's okay to, it's good to. But I think that, as a society, we're very prone to getting the message that we're supposed to just be okay on our own, or, oh, I've been with you forever, we know each other so well. But we can never be done knowing each other. And that newness and the emerging of ourselves is in the present moment. It's in our eyes, it's in those vulnerable moments. And so what I notice happen when I'm working with couples is that as people slow down, as they turn towards each other and start looking in each other's eyes and talking to each other versus talking through me, which I don't recommend if you're in coaching or therapy for you want to be actually talking to each other a lot, is that as soon as people start to slow down and look at each other, they actually do get interested. They get more interested in each other, and then they're they're way more willing to go there with each other. So I find that it's in the slowing down that it's more possible. But if we're just going, if you just throw that question out over the dinner table, you might just feel the discomfort and not feel the warmth that comes back, or the good things that would come from having taken that risk that make it worth it.
Right. So finding the right moment in time to do that. Um, what about in your conversations with couples and
Mhm.
females? What are specific things that you're finding get in the way of all of this?
Hmm.
Are there objects like phones? Are there jobs? What is it you see right now over the past few years that get in the way of opportunities to connect like this?
Hmm. Well, first thing that comes to mind is just the busyness of our lives. So that's work, it's kids, it's phones, it's all the distractions. Like there are so many distractions. And once we've sort of moved through a lot of couples start with like an infatuation phase where they're like, I haven't even seen my phone in 3 days. It doesn't matter because I'm with you. And, they have that like, you're obsessed sort of with each other. And so once all that fades, which is normal, it's supposed to, those hormones and that whole process between us does evolve into something else, which is really cool. There's some good stuff beyond that. There's really good stuff beyond that. But I think that that's when people are at risk of just losing presence with each other, starting to think they know each other, pay less attention to each other, because you sort of are like, I know you, I know how you're going to react, I know what you think, I know what you're doing. And we do start paying less attention. And then there's the world like trying to distract us, whether it's, the like dings on our phone or the news or the kids who need a lot or our jobs that now are happening wherever they can find us, And so I do think that those are the things that I think take us out of really noticing each other and slowing down with each other. And logistics, oh my God, logistics that's what's gonna that could be the death of me one day.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Just having to navigate the complexity of life, schedules, kids, work, getting food, cooking, just like how our world, like in our home, functions day to day with the four of us, figuring that out every week and sometimes every day.
Yeah.
If we could talk, we could never stop talking, I feel like, about our plans and our schedules. And it's
The
really
lists.
the lists, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's what gets in the way. And so when you're a couple in the beginning, there's you feel like you have so much time, and I think there's a lot of room for spontaneity, for like spontaneous sex and spontaneous connection and romance. And then I think as time goes on and life gets more full, i I think it works to like really carve out, like protect time for yourselves as a couple, and to protect time for your own self-reflection practices or connection or contemplative practice, mindfulness, whatever it is. I think we have to be those things don't just fall out of the sky anymore. And so
You make time for it.
I
So
think you make
how you
time.
that leads me to a question, and
Hmm.
you almost mentioned it, but like, is it okay? Sex, right? So is
Hmm.
it like healthy in your relationship to be to carve out time for that? Like, hey, tomorrow night, let's take an hour for ourselves and have sex. Is that
Hmm.
an healthy thing to do in a relationship,
Hmm.
or should it be spontaneous?
I think scheduling it is awesome. And I think, and there's a few reasons why. I mean, I think we all love when we're just sort of overcome with desire and longing and all of that for each other. And I think that like what we're talking about in our current modern life, and when life is that full, I think that it's like a self-care practice. It's like, if that's what it takes to make time for that connection, if you're finding that like, well, we're exhausted at night and then our kids are up at 4 and it's like there's just no time.
And
I
there,
think, yeah, it really is amazing how that, if you're finding that it's not coming, it's not just coming falling out of the sky, is how I say, like, absolutely, like, schedule that. And maybe, I think for most people, and I'm thinking about women here, maybe especially, like, um, maybe I'll just talk about this for a minute, just sexuality for a moment,
yeah,
because I think that um, there's a few things I want to say here. One is, yes, schedule that and be open to something else happening. Maybe it's not, um, the sexual experience of your dreams. Maybe it's like, maybe something else comes out of that, or maybe it's something else that's intimate that doesn't end up being sex. Or I think that sometimes people just like an agenda, like they're going to check it off. That's what people don't want. That's why they would avoid it. So
Mm.
make it intimate, make space for it, and be open to, if there's some other kind of connection or intimacy that wants to happen, then celebrate that. And I think that women, I just want to be an advocate for women here, that when they are, let's say, working and have children, and are handling a lot at home, that they might need more space to relax and settle into, okay, I'm not, the kids are taken care of, the house taken care of, logistics taken care of, like I'm settling into a receptive, connective place, that women might enjoy a little more time, and time to relax with their partner, and not just sort of like switch roles. There's just a lot of women who talk about like, oh my God, and now I'm supposed to have sex right now, or I just was going from one role to another, and then now I have to be. It can feel like a lot of pressure for women, and so I really love if people can make time and have a really kind of a loose agenda. Like our agenda is to explore, connect, find each other, relax, play, like make it something you would look forward to, you know?
Yeah,
And
I'm
right?
yeah, I think the most profound thing that you just mentioned in there was like, and it made like, it clicked. As a mother, as a spouse, as a caretaker, you go from one role to the next all day.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing is, oh, now my role is to have sex with my husband, because, and so like if we can somehow talk about that, remove that
Mm-hmm.
from that, that's powerful stuff. That was good. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I'm in my experience, and this is, just through working with so many couples, it seems like men make those transitions easier, and can make that
I
transition
mean,
to, oh,
I
time
could
for
press,
sex.
I could press pause right now and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Ellen, I got to cut this short," and you know what I mean, and then come
Yeah.
back.
I think for whatever reason, that's what I see. And I think women want time and space to transition, and they want to feel like they're being given to, like that it's like, how can sex be nourishing for a woman? That shouldn't be rocket science, but sometimes it is, that a woman starts to feel like, oh, now this, like you said, like, oh, now I need to do this, and this is another thing I need to do, versus like, oh, this is a time when I really get nourished by our connection. My partner's really interested in me, because women are doing a lot of output these days, and it's nice when it feels like, oh, this is like input, this is nourishing. So I would love for partners to talk about that more. Like, how can we make this really nourishing for both of us?
That's good.
Yeah.
If you just said that today, it would have been like perfect for everybody listening, I bet.
Oh, good. I hope so.
So let's go, because we touched on this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back. So when a relationship first happens,
Mm-hmm.
sparks are flying, like you said. We forget we even have a phone. We forget life around us even exists. We're just hooking up all the time and loving each other and going out
Mm-hmm.
to eat. What is that just simple to do? Like you're falling in love is like a thing that's just so easy to do, but then like actually being in love, is that something that takes an extra step in our relationships, like an extra effort? Like, can you talk about that growth process?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I think so. I think it's easy to, I mean, I think it's easy to fall in love and hard to be loving every day over time, over the long haul with someone. Because eventually at some point we start to realize the thing that was so cute and engaging about someone is kind of irritating and annoying, or bothering us now, or like, wow, I used to love that about you, but now I can't stand it. We just our differences start to really glare, like they become a little glaring. And so there's a process of like metabolizing that. And it's kind of like, I think you and your wife kind of went through something like that when you got on like your like, oh my God, some light bulbs went off and I had to just grow and learn. And it's like you're recalibrating and metabolizing these differences, and how I think there's an art to staying in love, because because it's sort of like, I mean, almost, that's almost not even quite the way that we say it, because our feelings come and go, and like there might be moments where I'm not feeling a lot of love for my partner. I'm feeling kind of irritated or put out, even for a few moments. And so we have to have something bigger, something we believe in, something we're committed to, that's kind of bigger than just how we feel about each other. That's like, no, you're like, when I prioritize you, like if I'm thinking my husband, when I prioritize him, when he's really the most important relationship I have, and I sort of live that way, then that makes everything fall into place in this awesome way. Because when we have each other's backs, or when he's also doing that for me, right? When it's mutual, we're really looking out for each other. We're taking good care of each other. And that engenders a lot of connection and love, and um, a lot of good feelings. And so I do think that there is something that most of us have to learn over time. Like, how are we going to stay inspired? And I really wanted to have a long-term relationship that was continued to be inspiring. I just saw so many people that like, yeah, we're married now, and just doing the wife and kids thing, or I don't know, like people who just didn't maybe even really like each other or feel that excited about it. And I was like, God, if I get married, I think it could be inspiring and fun and enriching. And I think that's where growth comes in. Like, that would be my answer, is like,
Is
falling in
your
love is
relationship inspiring and fun?
absolutely, and challenging. I mean, yeah, but
Awesome.
I make it, we make it so, right? It doesn't just happen. Like, we actually really live in a way where we get to keep having that. And so I think that, um, for what you're saying, like over time, there's something about learning how to, like, what do we need to do? What would have us be psyched to wake up to each other every day and go to bed with each other every night? What are those things?
Do
Because
you think
love is enough to bring you together, but I don't think it's enough for the long haul. In a way, it's beautiful. Love can conquer everything. I believe that too. But I think for the day in and day out, there's like kind of like principles to live by or something that help.
Yeah, and that comes with mainly talking to each other, it sounds like, right? From just literally just way more open, even if it's hard
Yeah,
conversations, just have them, right?
absolutely. Oh my God. I It's amazing what happens when people just start asking questions, telling more of the truth. I mean, so often that's what I'm doing with people, just helping them do that. And I don't have to do much other than just help them keep doing that. And people they find each other, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost feels like for me personally that I do that, but not even close to the level I probably should be. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Obviously we could all learn more, do more, be more. I guess whatever. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I got well to go back. Is it like in the beginning of a relationship? Is it even real? Like, is it real love? Do you think? For
Hmm.
those people listening that are like trying to find love, or
Hmm.
do you deal with that at all? Is it even?
I,
Is it
I,
just kind of, I don't know,
I
fantasy land? I don't know.
well, it could be. I think there's something, people are having a real experience, and there might be fantasies in there, like we're projecting all over each other. It's like we're seeing the best possible versions of each other, and we're putting that out there, maybe. But I think that's a valid experience. Like a 16-year-old in love, that's a valid experience.
Sure.
When you meet someone new and they're exciting, compelling, like, it's amazing, it's awesome. And yeah, like reality will set in, that this is another human being that has flaws and has things that are irritating, is complicated, is kind of high maintenance, perhaps. Like all those things will come to pass if you live with anyone long enough. And those aren't, that shouldn't be deal breakers. That doesn't mean that like something's wrong with your relationship or this person. I think that that's, if there were any fantasies to break, it would be that fantasy that you could somehow stay in that initial infatuation stage forever. I think
not a
you can.
reality.
It's not reality. It's not how we're not biochemically built for that. That's not what happens. But you can come back to those moments. If you had that in the beginning, you can always find that again through the eyes, through slowing down, seeing each other. People, it's amazing. People remember like, oh my God, you know, couples that 30 years into the relationship will be looking at each other and say, I see the person I met that day, the person I fell in love with. She's right here. Like they'll see it, you know? And that is amazing that just through our presence, it can all be brand new again. And then we'll forget it all, you know, 10 minutes later, but we can come back.
Yeah. That's just, yeah, that reminds me of like, you know, being present, right? You can be present for like, seems like it comes in for like a couple seconds and then it slowly goes out and then you forget it because you get distracted and then you got to find a way to come back to it. Same concept, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And two people doing that though, this is what I find that's different than meditating. It's like with our own mind, that's one process of bringing ourselves to presence, right? But with another person, you can really, I find that I can inhabit the present longer, actually. Whether it's with my child or my baby, you know, my 12-year-old or my husband, like in those intimate moments, like you can lose sense of time and space. And it's like, wow, we are so here. So there is something really amazing, I think, about relationship when it comes to cultivating presence, if we can look at it like that.
Yeah, and that comes with, and what makes me think, Ellen, is like, I gotta say it, like comes with dropping the phone, like out of the room, out of sight, out of our pockets.
Yes.
Shutting the TV off.
Yeah.
That's probably on a lot because your kid, you know, because kids, I mean, at least in my house, and just, you know, removing that stuff from us so we can be truly present.
You really have to, whether it's getting outside or turning the things off, or you know, bedtime can be a sweet time for that. Like there are moments, they happen, but you're right that we do have to sort of also make space for it. Yeah.
I think as you talk here, and it kind of makes me think of just how much more intentional we need to be today in modern society with that than we probably had to back in the day when they were just sitting around reading newspapers, right?
I think so. I do think so. I think we have many more demands on our attention than has ever before been true. So I do think we have to be more intentional and aware, and it's a steeper path.
Do you have scheduled meetings with your family or your spouse?
With my husband, yeah, we have business and financial meetings where we sort of go over our business and financial stuff, which they're really not the most fun for me, but we need to do them. We're getting better at how to do them, actually. We keep figuring out like, how can I make this something I look forward to? And then, because I really look forward to our date time, which is, you know, often now like a hike and a picnic, or, you know, whatever kind of time him and I can get, where it's like, okay, we're going to just focus on each other. I always look forward to that.
How do you schedule that in? Do you have a recommendation of how to like you just say, hey, let's look at a day this week to go? Or
yeah, right now, I mean, we've gone, you know, when our kids were really little, we sometimes have months without a babysitter, you know, a babysitter would go off to college or someone would move and we're like, oh my God, we're back to nothing. And, you know, so I realized that that's challenging with little ones, but we would, once we would find people to help us, we would do whatever worked. And so sometimes, you know, we try to keep once a week, like 3 to 4 hours is kind of our sweet spot, usually longer if that works. But I don't recommend like a 2-hour date. Like I'm like, give yourself at least 3 to 4 hours, because you need, like, I mean, I just have that time to kind of spread into. But then, I mean, we always loved, we did a lot of morning dates when our kids were little, because bedtime was such a ordeal with 2 little ones. And so we just felt like, God, we can't hand that off to anybody. So we would go for mornings or daytime and go for a hike, go sit and get coffee. Like it was so, I loved it. I loved it. And they got older. Sometimes we do dinner out, but I think my favorite time with him is when we go for a walk and we have a picnic or a coffee or a 3-hour hike or whatever, where we're just really, we're not doing a lot of stuff together. We tried doing things like partner yoga and dancing, and I was like, we're not talking. I need to talk to you. Like, this is
That
fun that
makes
we're doing
sense.
something, but
Yeah.
I'm like, even though we're together all day with these kids, like, or, off and on all day, but I just wanted to be able to be with him and not,
Connect.
yeah, and connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the present. Yeah. In presence. Yeah. That's wow. So
Yeah.
much good stuff in this
Oh, I hope
conversation.
so.
Oh my goodness. I feel like you should charge me afterwards for all
Oh my
this
gosh. No, I'm
wisdom and
happy to
knowledge.
share. Happy
So
to share.
for the mindful impact listeners, where can we learn more about you? What do you have going on right now? What's up?
I have a private psychotherapy practice in Boulder. I'm also coaching couples virtually. I'm doing everything virtually right now. So that's through my website, ellenbader.com.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I
If
say
you
your last name wrong?
I don't know if you did, but everyone does. So because it's
Okay.
spelled Boeder. And I also support the relationship school. So I'm involved there helping train coaches and collaborating with Jayson Gaddis, my husband, at times. And I think those are the main ways. Yeah.
Awesome. And you can find that in the show notes for everybody listening. So thank you so much for being here. I want to ask you one last question. If you could go back, Ellen, and give your 18-year-old self any kind of advice, what would you say to her?
Any advice?
Yeah, and you would listen. You would listen.
I think it would be to reassure her that she was going to find that she would find love, that she would find a really wonderful relationship and be able to have that in her life. I think that I had a lot of things that I felt good about inside myself, but I really questioned if I would get to have that, if that would work out well for me.
Cool.
So I would let myself know that would happen, and I didn't have to worry about it.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing that. That was very vulnerable of you. Thank you so much. All right, I'll press stop now.